Let's just talk about Elliott waves now and wave principle. Michael Hampton, who's a regular guest on this show, describes Elliott waves as more of an art rather than a science. How do you read the waves, and how often do they not work?
Well, the first thing
I'd say not every system works all the time, does it?
Wave principle is not a system. Wave principle is a description of the shapes of market price changes. Now, let's suppose you met a man who had lived on the dark side of the moon his whole life, had never seen a tree. And he said, well, tell me, what does it look like? Now, you'd have to sit down and explain a lot about the tree. And as you spoke, he might misunderstand a lot of what you said. Well, are these things perfectly straight, these things you call branches? Well, no, they kind of twist and turn. Well, they look like a tube, or, well, not really. They're kind of rough. So Elliott went in empirically in the 30s and described what he saw in great detail. So it's a description of how the market moves. Now, from that description, you can make a lot of conclusions about how the market should behave. It's going to move in 5 waves when going in the direction of the one larger trend. It's going to move in 3 waves or a combination thereof when going against the one larger trend. But it doesn't tell you necessarily the quantity. Some branches are longer than others. Some waves are longer than others. There's a lot of quantitative variability. However, I don't think there's a better template from which to work. So once you have the wave model to work from, then you can interpret your indicators, sentiment, momentum indicators, and so on, in the correct light, understanding the degree of the trend. So, for example, that's why I took this risk and wrote this book, calling for a major decline. In fact, our 1978 book called for a major bull market for the same reason. We saw that the degree was very, very large. We'd finished a tremendous bear market period from 1966 to 74/82, and it was the base for a giant move up. Well, now we've completed a 5th wave just as we did in 1929, so we're looking for the aftermath there. Other times, such as in late February, early March of 2009, we said, well, this is a bottom, but it's not cycle degree or super cycle degree. It's what we call primary degree. So that's how we were able to say the Dow should go back to 10,000. It went a little further than that, but it's certainly within the range of a primary degree retracement.
But calling for 10,000 on the Dow when it was at 7,000 in February was an absurd call.
Yeah, it was crazy. And the wave principle is the only thing that allows you to do that from time to time. So you can look back over its 70-year published history of, I think, 7 different practitioners who were leading during their days, and find an amazing track record, but you'll find, obviously, plenty of times when people are wrong. It's like saying, well, someone who bats in baseball, maybe this is the wrong place to be talking about baseball, but
it's fine. We've heard
batting
of it.
300 or 400, he still is out more than he's in, but he's still the best player around. What I would like people to do is not impose a double standard and just simply say, is it a better track record than the economists have produced? Oh yeah, a lot better. Is it a better track record than fundamental analysts have produced? Of course it is. And I think it's a better track record than any other, even technical method that has any kind of track record is out there. So I don't think you can do better.
Do you trade the markets yourself?
Upon occasion. Mostly I'm too busy. I mean, I've got 100 employees. We've got 25 analysts working around the clock, covering every major market worldwide. I'm overseeing that kind of thing. I'm going around, making these speeches and so on. So mostly I'm a position person. I get into position based on what I think is likely to happen. And, for example, I'm very liquid right now in all the safest possible dollar investments I can. Actually, I still have the silver that I bought in 1993 at $3.50, right at the low. I bought 2 bags of what are called junk silver coins, just in case we have a freeze-up situation in the banking system and we may need to spend them.
You can buy some
but that was
guns
a
and
great
tins
buy.
with them.
That was one of the thrills of my life. And, you should have some gold coins as well, but I think the chance of buying those will be greater somewhere down the road.
I'm going to have a bet with you about gold, but let me just ask you, what about, you talked about Jim Dines, do you like uranium or rare earth, or do they just fit into your, you don't want to earn anything except
No, you
cash?
should have liked uranium. It had one of the biggest runs of any commodity ever, but that's over. All of those commodity runs are over with. I even think the rebounds are probably over. My upside target on oil when it was $33.50 was low 70s. It actually got to the low 80s, but I still think it's a counter-trend move.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of a good bet. Do you want to have a sportsman's bet?
No, I'll tell you why. Because I'm on record with everything I say.
Yeah.
So I place my bets on the public table. And when people want to call me an idiot, they're
no. I was going to okay.
They have the proof right in front of them. It's in hard copy.
I was going to bet you a silver dollar or a gold sovereign that we won't see, I don't know, $650 gold by, I don't know, 2011. Come on the show in 2 years' time again, and
well,
we'll
I'll
see.
promise to come on your show in a couple of years' time, and we will talk about it. But no bets here.
All right, okay, fair enough.
My bets are in the marketplace.
Who?
I mean, you obviously talk to just as well as another person.
You talk to a lot of people. Your fingers on the pulse. I imagine you talk to a lot of fund managers, a lot of technical traders, a lot of newsletter writers. Who's the best market timer, in your opinion?
Well, I can answer both those questions. The first one in the negative. I talk to almost no one.
Okay.
Because the whole point of trying to do good market analysis is to get away from the crowd.
Yeah.
The crowd is heavily influencing, and they'll bring up ideas that are completely irrelevant. Like, did you know the Fed is going to meet on Wednesday? Or, they're about to plan a giant bailout. If I listened to any of that, they all came, in the Wave 2 rallies in 2008, just before everything fell apart. It will hurt your independence and your disciplines. As far as the best market timer goes, as far as I know from the records of the past 30 years, it's Arch Crawford.
I've followed Arch. I've interviewed him on the show.
Yeah, and he doesn't get the respect that he deserves, although the people that follow him know how good he is. He's been a friend of mine since the 70s. Smart guy, and he likes to say that they invented economists to make astrologers look good. And I don't think he needs to say that. I think he looks good on his own.
I've read Arch's news. I was going to say I've read Arch's newsletter, and a lot of the time he makes his calls based on technical stuff rather than astrological stuff.
I think, to be fair to him, you have to say it's a powerful combination of the two. And he shouldn't use and doesn't really anymore use the word astrology because it sounds like, what's your sign? It's really planetary cycles. And the argument is that they influence human behavior. How to make that connection, I'm not going to do it. That's his job. But his track record speaks for itself. So,
well, Robert Prechter, what can I say? It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You've had an arduous flight, which has been extended by a 3-hour delay, so you must be absolutely shattered.
Not at all. This cheered me up quite a bit. I'm in a much better mood than when I landed.
Well, any frustration you were feeling, you didn't show, so good for you. Tell us, are you writing a book at the moment? Are you about to have something published?
Well, I'm always writing some books. But if I live long enough, if my flight makes it back in one piece, I hope in the next 5 years to write a truly comprehensive book on the wave principle. The one that we did in 1978, it just is a skimming of the surface. And the other thing I'd like to do is write about a 600 or 700 page volume on socionomics. I think we're starting to do some serious studies, and I think by that time we'll have enough to really come out with a textbook on it. So
Excellent.
Those are my goals. We'll see.
And if any of our listeners want to find out more about your newsletter or your work, Elliott Wave International, is that the place to head to?
Yes, elliottwave.com. We have a lot of free things. You don't even have to spend any money. Or if you go on Amazon, you can get a bit of an introduction to what I do if you buy Conquer the Crash. And I even think there's some used first volumes out there if you want to save some money.